Welcome to the 502 Leader Series. My name is Jason Mudd. I'm your host. Thank you for listening. Each week, we bring you an inspiring person or message from right here in Louisville, Kentucky, with tips that you can incorporate into your life to help you live better. All right, my name is Jason Mudd. This is the 502 Leader Series. I am honored today to sit down with a pretty well-known guy, Jason Falls. Hey, Jason.
This is the Leader Series? Oh, jeez. You picked the wrong dude.
Well, yeah, you are a name that is synonymous in Louisville with you've been on my radar for social media for a long time, and I think you've really carved out a really cool niche with that. What would you say that you do?
That's a really good question. Some days I don't know. Social media is a really good, I think, label for me because that I play in that space. But if I had to, sort of short sell what I do, I would say that I am a digital marketing, strategist and consultant, and that manifests itself in a number of different ways. But right now, I've got sort of two main parts of what I would call my business. One is the Jason Falls brand, as it were, my blog and speaking and writing and whatnot. And I'm very focused. In 2017, I kind of focused myself on helping small businesses understand how to leverage digital marketing, because I think there's a big gap there, not just from a consultant standpoint and a content standpoint, but a technology standpoint. I think a lot of technologies are built, they're free at first, and then they get funding, and investors say, screw the little guy, focus on enterprise because that's where the money is. And I've always hated that, but then I also sort of noticed that about myself, that I was working at agencies and with larger companies, and I wasn't doing anything to help the small businesses other than blogging and sharing some advice. And so I thought I really wanted to dial in that focus. So kind of part of my business is really focusing on helping small businesses understand digital marketing. And then the other part of my business is the Conversation Research Institute, which is a new business and is basically a market research company. But the focus group that we ask questions of, we don't actually ask questions of. We analyze online conversations about the topic at hand to understand more about your customers. So we are pretty effective if you want to find out what people are saying online about you and put some context around that and mine that for consumer insights. We can do that really well, but we're probably more effective at pulling your brand name out of it and studying what people are saying about dinner or travel or healthcare or diabetes or other topics that can inform your marketing. It can inform your product. It can inform your user experience. It can inform your targeting. And so we're working with, I've got that side of the business that focuses on medium to large businesses, and then I've got this personal focus on small businesses. And then that sort of consultant role, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about, your piecemeal and a lot of things together, and how you make your money. I also serve as an advisor to Elasticity, which is a digital marketing agency that I helped establish an office for here in Louisville. They're in St. Louis. I still advise a lot of their clients and help them with content strategy and whatnot. And then I have some other speaking and writing consulting things that happen along the way.
You talk about multiple hats, and we were talking about this a little bit before about how nobody really goes in and has just a 9-to-5 job anymore. That's such the old style economy, and stuff is moving to where the internet's made it so that anybody can open up and do some sort of a business on the side. That a lot of times these revolve around your passions.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that kind of play in for you? I mean, it seems like you've been what I guess the term is distributed workforce for a long time.
Sure.
With Elasticity, starting that agency here, helping them grow that here. How does that play in for you?
Yeah, I think I think part of it is I'm a workaholic and I have kind of a short attention span. And so I have an abundance of ideas every day, and I get fired up about one or two of them and want to go see them happen. And so when I first moved back to Louisville, I was in my first career, I guess you could say, was as a PR guy in college athletics. So I watched ball games for a living, which was great, but it didn't pay crap. So But when my son was born, I realized I was traveling too much. My then wife and I moved, back to Louisville, where she's from, to sort of, kind of raise a family. And I started working at an advertising agency, Doe Anderson, downtown, working with some brands and clients. Well, then I realized as I started sort of exploring PR and studying social media, which was emerging at the time, I realized I know as much about this stuff as these other people do because I've been using forums and message boards and blogs in my college PR job for a long time. I just never put it in the context of business.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I started to do that, I realized, well, I know just as much as these other people because this is new. So I started the Social Media Club of Louisville here with Todd Earwood, and we started inviting area professionals together to talk about it. That evolved into the Louisville Digital Association. I started blogging from a personal perspective, writing short stories and narrative nonfiction back on an old MySpace blog to kind of explore that, platform and build an audience of people there for my own personal use. And I just kind of kept coming up with these ideas and spinning them off. And what that evolved into around 2009, 2010, I moved away from Doe Anderson and started consulting on a strategic level with brands. But then I had events that I wanted to run. And then I had this conversation research thing that was starting to take formation, and I wanted to sell that product. And I also wanted to do some on-camera video work for, Todd had a video startup back then that was doing some content, and I was doing man on the street interviews for him. And so I had a little bit of everything going on, and it was all interesting to me, and it was all fun. And I found a way to sort of put 6, 8, 10, 12 things together and, earn a pretty decent living, to be able to support my kids and my family. The bad thing about it is you've always got 20 balls in the air and you never know which one's going to fall next.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of I have a tendency anyway to overdo it and overextend myself a little bit, which I've started to learn over the last 4 or 5 years and kind of reel it in a bit. But yeah, I've always got 5 or 6 irons in the fire doing 3 or 4 different things for people. And, being I guess, in a way, from a marketing standpoint, a jack of all trades lends itself to that.
I think that there's been so much talk, and again, this goes into a lot of the shift in the economies. But I remember, growing up, it was all about specialization. And when I was in high school, and even when I started college, it was all about specialization. You've got to get really good at one thing. And I look at how things have progressed, and even some reading. I'm reading an awesome book right now called Tools of Titans. It's a new Tim Ferriss book, and there's a section in there where they talk about having. It's really, you want to be very good at 2 or 3 things, and that's what gives you the depth and the width in what you're going after and what you can provide for people. You talk about having multiple balls in the air, but I think when you're trying to develop, especially, because when you work for yourself, you're in some ways trying to come up with a lifestyle that you want to live by. So having those multiple deals, I mean, it really gives. I would think it gives a lot of comfort to a degree.
It does. I mean, I'm never bored. I'm always excited to go to work. I very rarely get burnt out with what I'm doing because I can always take a turn and go.
I want to do something different.
Yeah, let's go do a podcast today, or let's go speak at an event tomorrow, and then let's do a strategy for a client. So I'm kind of hopping from one thing to another, and it is pretty nice. But you touched on something that has wound up being very important for me. I have 2 children, an 11-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. Their mother and I are now divorced, but they have become, they haven't become. They've always been in their existence the most important things in the world to me. But it's important for me to be able to get up in the morning, make them breakfast, take them to school, pick them up from school. Hang out with them on the weekends. It's important for me to have a job that allows me the flexibility to be a parent, because I come from divorced parents, and I don't want my kids to feel like I wasn't ever around when they were growing up. So I've kind of had my professional life be somewhat malleable so that I can be a more involved dad. I'm not going to lay claims on being a good dad. I don't know what I'm doing any more than anybody else does. But I'm trying to be present, accounted for, and engaged and involved with my kids at an age where my parents weren't necessarily around for me. Not that I had a bad childhood or anything, but I just want to be engaged with my kids at this age. And so it's important for me to have that flexibility and having multiple things, skill sets, multiple things you can do for other people, and working for yourself, consulting, building your own businesses, being an entrepreneur allows you to say when you get to clock in and clock out. And so, if for whatever reason, my ex-wife, the babysitter, or whatever can't make it, I can leave at 2:30 and go pick my kids up from school and hang out with them for a couple hours, and then just catch up on work tonight or tomorrow or whatever. And having that opportunity and that freedom in the workforce with that sort of distributed, revenue sources and whatnot is a very magical thing, and something that probably wasn't possible 20 years ago.
It is incredible what the the iPhone's only been around for 10 years. I think they
Mhm.
just had their 10th anniversary a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So the things that we're doing, going, circling back to the very beginning when you were talking about your first really ad job, when you're realizing that nobody knows any more than me. That's something that is really rings true for so much that's going on in society. Stuff happens so fast and stuff changes so fast that if you're just able to catch something right at the beginning, and it's very easy to do if you're paying attention, you can really position yourself really, really well.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think you have to be careful, especially in the world of technology, because technology changes so fast. I mean, I was in on the front end of social media, which is now a big thing,
Hmm.
and I was smart enough to figure out back then it was a big thing or was going to be a big thing. If you were to also say, well, okay, I'm in on the front end of Snapchat, that's not as big a thing.
Right.
It's there's a limited, sort of shelf life to those platform specific or maybe niche topic specific things. But if you're young and if you have the ability to invest time and energy in establishing some expertise on something, even narrow, like just a platform like Snapchat, the opportunity's there to go out and make money doing it. There are businesses right now, even in Louisville, who will pay someone to come in and say, here's how to use Snapchat, here's how I would use it for your business, right? That exists. That didn't exist just a few years ago, a couple years ago. If you are able to identify that trend on the front end, and you're able to establish and connect your understanding of that platform or that trend or that thing, and connect it to traditional business metrics and disciplines and ROI and all that good stuff, you can carve out a nice life for yourself.
Mhm.
The what you have to be careful of though is, I'm going to be a Snapchat or an Instagram expert because I love it. If you don't also back that up with business metrics and a business sense, you're not going to keep clients very long. So you
Mhm.
got to be careful about it.
Well, you've got to be well rounded, and that goes back to having the multiple skill sets and
Sure.
the multiple hats. Something that you're very ingrained in this, and it amazes me. Now that we're talking about social media, you get in. It amazes me that there are still businesses that don't have a social presence,
Mhm.
and what do you say to a business that doesn't have anything
Yeah.
even?
I mean, I just, look at the consumer usage numbers. I mean, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 67% of people, spend, their primary communications mechanism is their mobile phone,
Mhm.
or their mobile device. And, upwards of, 72, I think, percent of Americans 12 and older use Facebook multiple times a day. So this is where consumers are. This isn't, we do not live in an attention economy anymore, where you can deliver messages through three major TV networks, a couple of daily newspapers in your community, a few radio stations. The traditional media attention
Mhm.
economy is different. It's not dying, it's not dead, it's just different.
Mhm.
And so, in order to get to the right customer, you have to take into account multiple cable channels, multiple online and offline publications. Social media is gobbling up people's attention every day, and so the attention of that end consumer is the economic metric that you're trying to go after.
Mm.
If you can get their attention for a little bit of time every day, then you have a much better chance than others of converting them into a customer or a fan or a loyal follower or whatever you're trying to get out of them. And so I think when businesses say, well, social media is a waste of time, or I don't spend any time there, I just say, well, your customers are spending a lot of time there, and you're not getting their attention anywhere else. So let's talk about it.
Right.
The honest truth is that for small businesses that are under $1 million in budget, 50% of small businesses don't even have websites. So we're not talking social media is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking just a digital adoption is the problem. And that's a lot of the motivation behind my sort of the Jason Falls brand, if there is a Jason Falls brand, my personal blog focus and my personal activity where I'm trying to, shepherd an audience along has turned almost exclusively to small businesses, because that's who needs it the most, and that's who's missing out on the opportunity the most.
Mm-hmm.
My rationale is, if I can encourage more small businesses to bite into that digital cookie, as it were, and build a website and build a social media presence and whatnot, then there's going to be a lot more businesses online. They're going to need more people like me to help them along in the maturation of their business, the growth of their business. And so I'm trying to create a more fertile marketplace for myself and for others.
Well, you talk about getting set up and just having the pages and having the presence there isn't even enough. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the content that you put in there. And it takes so much thought to really get out there and have good content that makes somebody pause and take a look at your stuff.
It does. And I've for several years now, anyone who's heard me speak about content marketing, I always come back to this sort of idea I landed on in 2010, that your job as a marketer now, you're in the holy smokes business. Your job in everything that you create, whether it's a headline that you're writing for a press release or a blog post, or whether it's copy you're writing for a pay-per-click ad, or a speech that your CEO is giving, or a marketing flyer that you're going to go put on windshields at the movie theater. Your job is to create content that makes your audience say, holy smokes, that's insert adjective here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It can be, holy smokes, that's amazing. Holy smokes, I didn't know that. Holy smokes, I need to tell my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Holy smokes, that's sad. That's hysterical. Your job is to create that emotional touch point in your audience that they say, holy smokes, I have to go do something now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's purchase your product or come visit your store or whatever. But your job is to create holy smokes moments. The problem with that being your job is that's also everybody else's job.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the frequency of holy smokes moments increases. Therefore, the noise increases and the signal goes down. So you have to become really good in order to stand out. And so we're in this sort of arms race in the content world. My friend Mark Schaefer calls it content shock, where there's just so much content to choose from that you drown it all out.
Mm-hmm.
It's the paralysis of choice. But because consumers are spending so much time on social networks, so much time consuming their news and information and entertainment from such disparate sources these days, you're left with little choice but to try to create those holy smokes moments when you do have their attention. And so it is a challenge, certainly for a small business that doesn't have a money or human resources or time. It's an incredible challenge. And so that's where I try to focus some energy and attention to try to make that a little bit of an easier leap for small businesses, so they're not intimidated so much by it. They just quit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I want them to do it.
Right.
So let's go do it.
Yeah. You've got to make it, you have to make it attainable.
Right.
You have to make it so that because you are going to make an impact on some level. I mean, you just have to, you've got to be intentional. I keep going back to that word in my own life about intentionality in everything that you do. And it really shows when you put it forward. I mean, so much stuff is non-verbal. The written word and the wording that you choose and all of this stuff matters so much. And it can really change the type of of a tone or the type of a message that you're going to send.
It actually, kind of rolls right into something I wrote last week on my blog, and something that I actually have done a couple of webinars and whatnot around recently is stating that intention, and the way that translates into business strategy is sort of defining your vision statement. What do you stand for? Who are you? What are you trying to do? And it's not enough to say, I want to sell more widgets than my competitor. That's not a vision statement. That's a sales goal. Your vision statement should be, I want to create a more friendly environment for people to socialize in Louisville. That would be a great vision statement for like a Heine Brothers, right? Some place where people can come together and not just drink coffee, but be a community. I don't know what Heine Brothers' vision statement is. I'm just throwing that off the top of my head. I know Mike, great guy, and if he wants to steal that, go for it. He's probably got a better one anyway. But your vision statement needs to. I like to tell people your vision statement is your intention, and it is also an easy one-sentence employee handbook. Because if you give your vision statement to your people who work for you, they should easily be able to look at that and go, I know how to behave. I know how to answer customers' questions. I know the attitude that I need to have. I know what we're trying to do here. It's not necessarily what we're trying to sell. It's not necessarily what we're trying to build, but just what you're trying to do every day. You're trying to create some sort of connection with your community, with your stakeholders. And if you have a clear vision statement, then your employees can understand that. And the stakeholders and your customers and your prospects, they can easily decide this is the kind of person or the kind of company I want to do business with. So whereas an individual who is studying meditation or other areas of philosophy, you might hear, you as a person need to decide what your intention is in everything you do. For a business, you need to decide what your vision statement is. What defines you? What are you all about? What's your purpose in doing this beyond making money? Because if you have a clear understanding of that, your audience will pick up on it, and you'll attract the kind of people you want to attract.
Do you think that having and casting a vision statement is something that's lacking in a lot of small businesses?
Oh, it's absolutely.
I mean, it seems like it's something that maybe people see as maybe a luxury or something that, I'll do when I have time, when in reality, it's probably the first thing that you should put on paper.
I totally agree. And you got to remember, the way that many small businesses, and I would say most small businesses, happen is someone's got an idea, they inherit some money, or they go get a small business loan and they say, okay, I'm going to start a restaurant, or I'm going to, open up an antique shop, or I'm going to, have a used car lot, or whatever their small business is. And they have, the understanding of the industry, the motivation to go out and do it. And but they try to just sell stuff. Let's sell stuff. As soon as I get a little money, I'll have someone design me a logo. As soon as I get a little money, I'll go do a website. As soon as I get a little money, I'll pay somebody to come in here and help me figure out what my vision statement is. That's the barrier that I think a lot of small businesses have with these components of marketing strategy and business strategy, that if you have them from the get-go, from the onset, the path is smoother and more clear, and you don't have as many hurdles to overcome as you build your business, because those definitions are in place. You don't have to teach your employees what your business is about. You don't have to show them by example. You can actually give them a document that says, here's who we are. And if you define that from the onset when you're building a business, I think you'll find that in comparison, it is a much smoother path to success. Because again, you're not starting out by just clamoring for every bit of revenue you can get in order to make sure you pay the note. You have an intention with your business, and it helps you define the decisions you make. Everything from, are we going to advertise with this publication or on this TV station? And if we are, what are we going to say? You don't have to answer those questions if you have a clear vision of who you are and what you're trying to communicate.
And that's actually something that's really important to remember. And I've seen this with a lot of small businesses that don't have that. It's never a bad time to develop that. If you're somebody that's listening that is just kind of had an oh crap moment, that I don't have that. go home, spend a week or two, and really put that down on paper, and introduce that to your staff. And I would imagine that anybody working for you would appreciate that so
Sure.
much, because a lot of times you see employees, especially in small businesses, where they don't necessarily know what to do. I think that goes a long way. I think it's some really, really good advice.
I just ask yourself, and you don't have to go hire a marketing consultant to do
No,
this.
you don't. You can
Just sit down at your kitchen table after dinner tonight and with a piece of paper and a pencil or pen and say, why am I doing this? What's the point? What do I want to accomplish? It's okay to say, I want to make money. I want to put food on the table for my kids. That's fine. But then move those over to the side and say, okay, why am I doing this for my customers? What type of people am I trying to attract and why? What do I want to create in terms of a community of people around my business? And what is my intention there? Is it I want to gather like-minded people who will buy products from me who I can then minister to? Perfectly valid reason to do it. Perfectly valid vision for who you want to be and what you want to be. Is it I want to create, a community melting pot, a point where people can come together and I can help foster a sense of community in my neighborhood, which is a perfect vision statement, sort of blueprint for a coffee shop or a bar or a restaurant or a bookstore. Do I want to, help make the world a better place by, helping the environment, which is something that certain types of stores, certain types of boutiques, certain types of professional services can sort of lean in that direction. So ask yourself that question, why am I doing this? Not just for me and my family, but for the community in general. And you'll start to kind of walk down that path of understanding what your vision really is.
I think that's going to be the biggest takeaway here. I think a lot of people can really relate to that and need that. So that's
we haven't started talking about bourbon yet.
We haven't gotten into anything yet. So we've gotten a lot about some of your whys and a lot of the things that you stand for. I think that it's awesome having a resource like this for small businesses. So I'm going to throw out jasonfalls.com because we probably didn't say that before.
I may have mentioned it,
but
I'm a little bit of a whore that way. So.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. So who is somebody that, as you've gone in your career, who's somebody that's mentored you that you've really looked up to?
Wow. Man, I'm so glad you asked me that question. And this is funny. I think a lot of people out there will relate to this and know who I'm talking about. When I was my first real managerial director position job, and remember I spent 15 years in college athletics as a sports information athletic media relations guy. So for people in Louisville, if you know who Kenny Klein is at U of L, who's the assistant AD for communications at U of L and handles all the PR and press row operations and media guides and website. I was that guy at several different schools. Kenny obviously even is a bit of a mentor to me in the business because he was the SID at Morehead State, which is where I did my undergrad long before I was there. Well, not long. I don't mean to imply, Kenny, that you're old. But he was the SID at Morehead State before I was there, and was someone that I looked up to in the business and learned from as I grew. But my first real director's position was at Georgetown College, and I was hired there to be the sports information director under Jake Bell, who was the athletic director at the time. And most people, especially the UK fans in the audience, will remember Jake Bell as a longtime Southeastern Conference basketball official, but he was also the principal and the head football coach at Henry Clay High School for a while in Lexington. Jake was my first boss as I got out into the real world as the career path that I wanted to follow. I learned my sports information chops under Randy Stacy at Morehead State, who followed Kenny Klein in the sports information director's role there. So Randy was a real good mentor to me, but Jake was the first person who took me aside and taught me how to be a business person and taught me how to operate in the real world in a real strong capacity. And what was great about that is Jake's from Carlisle, Kentucky. He's from out in Western Kentucky in the farmland, and he's a real, he's kind of a farmer kind of guy, right? He's got that small town Kentucky mentality, and he once said that if he had all the money in the world, he would go buy a cattle ranch and a horse ranch in Montana because he wants to get away from people. He's one of those kind of guys, right? But he had all these just funny sayings and intricacies and odds and ends about his personality that I just absorbed for the 3 or 4 years that we worked together. And to this day, I am 10 minutes early for meetings, almost without a doubt every meeting ever, because Jake was an old football coach, and he told me if you're 5 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. Right? You got to be there on time, right? Don't waste anybody else's time. He was super efficient and a little anal retentive about certain things. But I mean, I just learned so much from him about the way that you treat other people, the way that you conduct your business, and the way that you hold yourself accountable. And he helped me develop a really good work ethic early on. I was already kind of a crazy workaholic because I just loved what I was doing, but he helped me kind of define that. And I still to this day think of some of the things that Jake would say, and I have that, WWJD, what would Jake do? Right? I've got that in my brain, right?
Yep.
And I still run into Jake every now and then. Love that guy to death. And if I could have any boss for my career, no offense to Randy or Joe or the other people I've worked for, but Jake would be it.
I take it for granted that I've had somebody in my life like that, and I try to really appreciate that sort of thing, because I have somebody that I've got what would mine's a what would Bo do, and it's always something that it's just always a little voice that's kind of always there for some stuff. It's neat. This you might get a kick out of this question. What's something that you believe that other people might think is a bit crazy? That might be a loaded question.
I was gonna say, that's a whole other podcast, dude. What do I believe that other people would think is crazy? Well, I mean, most of what I believe is a little nutty, especially for people in Kentucky, because I'm way left liberal. I'm kind of out there. I mean, I try not to talk politics too much with people around here, because people get their panties in a wad real quick, especially the last couple of years. I'm also I'll admit this on this podcast. I'm a U of L fan because I live in Louisville, and I've always been a Patino fan. But I've also, for the same reason, I've also been a Calipari fan. I actually covered Calipari's first home game with the New Jersey Nets when I worked in New York City back right out of college. So I'm a basketball and I'm a sports fan. Obviously, worked in the industry for 15 years. I really enjoy watching UK basketball. I'm sort of a personal UK fan, but I am more of a fan of irritating UK basketball fans. I am the best antagonist for them anywhere. I love picking on them. I love making fun of them. I love getting under their skin. And I have this sort of personal mantra that I'm the guy who likes making everybody in the room just a little uncomfortable. And that makes me feel like I'm in control, and like that's my role in life, right? I'm the instigator. And so I believe wholeheartedly, and most people think I'm nuts when I explain this. I believe wholeheartedly that if you don't make yourself a little uncomfortable every day, you don't go anywhere in life.
You don't grow from anything.
You don't grow from anything. You've got to put yourself in situations where you're debating or maybe even arguing something with someone on a regular basis, because it fuels whatever adrenaline or energy that goes into your brain that makes your brain grow. And I try to, if you had the ultraviolet whatever spectrograms of your brain on me, you would see my brain glowing at 2 or 3 points every day, because I'm poking a UK fan about getting beat by Tennessee, or I'm making fun of somebody because the Cubs have always sucked. I don't care if they won the World Series this year. I'm constantly doing that because I love driving that sort. I love being the instigator in the conversation, and I think that's why I'm a pretty good blogger, because I like to throw stuff out there and lay down the gauntlet and just stir it up. Sometimes I don't even believe in what I'm writing. I just stir it up to see how people will react, because I feel like that's my role. My job is to light their brains up.
It's funny that you said. I've got a pretty good friend of mine that's a former judge here in Jefferson County, and he will throw these nuggets out on social media, and it will just incite just this craze. and I don't know if anybody ever notices this, but he never goes back and responds on anything.
Yeah.
He just throws it out there.
He probably didn't read the responses.
No, I bet he does.
See, I think that's the difference between someone who's an instigator and someone who's a sociopath.
Well,
right?
okay, you want to see
an
you
instigator.
The
you're interested. You're like, okay, I want to see what people say. You may not respond, but if you just throw this just inflammatory nugget out there and then you never go back and read it, you've got problems.
Yeah. You want to you may not comment again, but
Sure.
you want to see. I don't want to say the fruits, but that's that's what it is.
The nuts of your life.
Yeah. So what's a book that you were talking about books and there was something that you were telling me about. What's a book that you're really into right now?
The one that I'm really into right now is the Light in the Cave, I think is the name of it. I brought it up earlier. Let me see here. Let me jump. Oh crap! I got to put in passwords. So I think it's The Cave and the Light, or The Light in the Cave, one of the two, and it's basically how Aristotle and Plato's philosophies have impacted Western civilization, and it's kind of a century by century look at how everything from Athens to Rome to the Byzantine Empire to the Middle Ages, how Aristotle and Plato and their philosophies impacted how people think, and both of those gentlemen and their philosophies structured the way we think about religion. It structured the way we think about science. It structured the way we think about government and law. Those two people, their thinkings, and to a degree Socrates as well, basically laid the foundation for how our world works. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing to see how it changed over the centuries of time, and how and why governments exist the way they do, how and why people interact with religion the way they do. And it's an interesting expose and explanation of how our world works and how people think. And when I was in like high school and college, I was never, my attention span wasn't such that I could really study those things deeply. And as I've gotten older, I've gone back to start reread some of the classics and understand philosophy and whatnot. And I just find it incredibly interesting.
I'm actually right there with you on some philosophies, and I was thinking the other day how much I wish if I could go back to college, I would tell myself study this stuff more. No, but I couldn't have comprehended it at the time. I mean, I was just not I just wasn't there to be able to get it.
Like how many PE credits can I get?
What is this is always a fun question. I like this. What recent purchase of $100 or less would you say has most positively impacted your life?
Whoa, that's deep. Oh my goodness, $100 or less. Okay, sorry. This is an easy one. I subscribe to an app called Headspace. Which is $9 a month, I think, or something like that. So it's less than $100 a year. And I do a little 15, 20-minute meditation every day. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing it now for 2 or 3 years, about 2 years. And it has changed my life immensely in how I deal with stress, how stressed I am. I mentioned earlier that I'm divorced. I went through that divorce in the last year. But I've been able to go through that with a very sort of steady sense of calm. And despite the fact that it brings up a lot of emotions and a lot of uncertainties in your life and who you are as a person and so on and so forth, I've been able to kind of take it all in stride, and which has been good because my kids are feeding off of my energy to a certain degree, and so it's been less stressful for them because it's been less stressful for me. And so meditating and understanding Eastern philosophy to go along with the ancient philosophy that I've been reading about too, I think I've just become a much more mindful, thoughtful, and calm person because of that. And Headspace, the app, which you can find in the App Store, Headspace.com is their website, is phenomenal. And it's really all about just mindfulness meditation. It's not a religious thing. It's just about breathing and checking in with your body and your mind and making sure you're calm and that you understand that self-doubt and all of these thoughts and stresses that enter your mind every day they're just that. They're just thoughts. You can dismiss them if you want. It's okay that they're there. You don't have to be afraid of them. You can actually think them and feel them and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, you are who you are, and those thoughts don't change that. So it's been a really fun ride for me to kind of bring a sense of calm to what has been a really crazy, hectic ride for the last 10 years or so.
I think that I'm glad that you said Headspace. I'm a huge fan of Headspace, and as an aside to that, the guy that started that, Andy Puddicombe, has this very cool British. He has like the British accent that just, I don't know, it just makes you want to listen to it. He just it's very calming and soothing. But again, I do want to stress, because I think that a lot of people associate meditation with Buddhism or Hinduism, and it's not. There's nothing religious about meditation as meditation itself. But I think that it's something that's beneficial for everybody. That's one of the biggest recommendations that I think I would put on anybody.
I think if I were to put a pop culture label on what Headspace and what meditation is, it's the calm your ass down app.
It is.
It's just calm down. Just take a deep breath, look around, appreciate your surroundings, appreciate who you are and where you are, enjoy it now, because this moment goes away and doesn't come back. And it helps you tackle everything else in life with just a degree of sort of steady confidence, because you know that no matter what happens today, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm still alive. I still have my family. I still have my health. I still have my friends. And anybody that I don't have is probably not worth holding on to if they are to leave me because I lost my job or because something bad happened or whatever, right? So it's just a reminder to calm your ass down, and I believe me, people that know me will testify that I needed that.
Something that meditation has done for me, and I think, and I don't know if anybody else gets this, but it's made me realize how much we are all the same. In a lot of these things that go on in our heads. Everybody at some point or another gets to a place where they think, I'm the only one. It's just me. I'm the only person. But we all deal with nearly the exact same things.
No doubt. And one of the big manifestations of that in my life, especially professionally, but also personally too, is the imposter syndrome of thinking that you're going to be found out, that you're not good enough to do this, you're not qualified, everybody else in the room is smarter than you, you're just faking it, and someone's going to discover how stupid you are and how unqualified you are to be here. And I have that a lot. I encounter that a lot. And it's a self-image, it's a self-confidence thing. And it kind of goes back to when I'll never forget when I got the job at Doe Anderson, which was my first job outside of the college athletics world. I was in mainstream advertising, marketing, PR. And I had no earthly idea if my skill set would transfer. I had no earthly idea if I was actually qualified for that job. But I decided one day, I guess just sort of a clairvoyant moment, I'm going to fake it till I make it. I'm going to act like I belong here until I do. And within a few months, I was very comfortable in the job. The skill set did transfer. I was doing good work. I was receiving praise from my boss, Dan Burgess at the time, for the work that I was doing. Then I started suggesting, hey, what about this social media and social networking world? Why aren't we doing anything about that? And the clients and whatnot were ripe for that. And so all of a sudden, 9 months into it, I think I was promoted. Right. And so now it wasn't that I was faking it anymore. I was making it. I was I kind of figured at least a piece of this out. And even though I've learned those lessons, that you can fake it till you make it, and you're actually not faking it, you do know what you're doing, I still on a regular basis have these confidence issues that strike me as like, oh, look, I see, I'm just going to throw out an example. I see Steve Traeger from Republic Bank sitting at the Bristol at lunch. I'm going to go over and say hi to him. Well, there's that voice in the back of my head like, why is the CEO of the bank going to say hello to you? You don't mean anything to him. But I soldier through and I go over and I say hi. And as it happens, Steve Traeger does remember who I am from the social media stuff, I'm sure. And I've done some consulting work for Republic Bank over the years, and so he's aware of that. And so it's pleasant to say, "Hey, Mr. Traeger, how are you?" He says, "Hey, Jason, good to see you." You know, and that's just kind of a cool moment. Doesn't necessarily mean anything for him or me, but it's me telling that imposter syndrome, no, you don't belong here. You know, I do, you don't. And if you can figure that out, then you can soldier through it. And you're right. There's lots of people out there who experience the imposter syndrome every day. There's lots of people who deal with depression. There's lots of people who deal with anger management issues and so on and so forth. It's just a matter of realizing that you're not alone. You're not the only one. And there's probably someone sitting next to you at work you can talk to about it.
I heard a really cool quote, and we'll wrap this up here in a second. I believe it was, I think he's a tech guy, Naval Ravikant. He said, if I only did the things that I was qualified to do, I'd still be pushing a broom.
Exactly.
Because what are we really qualified to do?
Yeah.
Really when it comes down to it.
Well, and the way that my career path kind of mapped itself out, when I was at Doe Anderson and started doing, I wouldn't call them social media strategy at the time. It was just social media ideas. I was trying to come up with creative ideas to help our clients figure out, the world of social media and digital marketing. I wasn't qualified any more than the next person to do that at the time, but it was really new. I just happened to be lucky that it was something that nobody else really understood either. So I could fake it until I made it or until I figured it out. And I tell people a lot that I was in the right place at the right time and I didn't screw it up. And that's okay.
Well, you talk, and this is the final thought I've got. But we're living through the only time that social media will ever be born.
Yeah.
We've lived through that, and it'll never happen again.
That's true.
It'll be something else, but very interesting. Well, Jason, I really appreciate you sitting down with me. This has been a fun conversation.
This is awesome.
Where can people find you online?
I'm Jason Falls everywhere. So Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram even. So just look for @Jason Falls, all one word. I am itsmontez.com is a good place to find me and small business advice and tips and tricks. And then, if you're looking to get to know your audience a little bit more, do some cost-effective customer research, Conversation Research Institute.com is a good place to go. We're getting ready to release our industry report on the senior care space. So assisted living, independent living, nursing homes, long-term care. We've done some analysis on what people are saying when they're buying those products for their parents typically. So that research is going to come out in the next few weeks. And Elasticity, which is at goelastic.com, is a great digital marketing agency. Still has staff members here in Louisville, and I still advise their clients. And a great agency to work with if you're looking for SEO, PR, content marketing, digital marketing strategy.
Cool.
Good folks.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you haven't checked out our other episodes, look us up on iTunes, and subscribe at yeslouisville.com/subscribe. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the 502 Leader Series. My name's Jason Mudd. If you haven't checked out our site, go to yeslouisville.com. We've got a great mix of content from business advice to living better, health-wise, fitness, nutrition, mindfulness. There's a lot of great topics that's very relevant to really pretty much anybody. Check it out, yeslouisville.com, and you can even subscribe to our newsletter at yeslouisville.com/subscribe. Thank you.